For 2 years I lived behind a locked door, listening to the footsteps of people who were supposed to protect me. I had never committed a crime. I had never harmed anyone. Yet my own son had arranged for me to be imprisoned inside an isolated, private facility, and the reason was almost impossible to believe. He wanted his mistress to have everything. My name is Daniel Carter, and for most of my life, I believed my son, Michael, was the person I could trust more than anyone in the world. I raised him after his mother died, worked long hours, sacrificed vacations, and eventually built a successful construction company that I planned to leave to him. When Michael got married, I welcomed his wife, Emily, into our family. She was kind, intelligent, and genuinely loved him. But Michael changed. He started coming home late. He became secretive with his phone. He stopped looking me in the eyes whenever I asked simple questions. At first, I blamed business stress. Then one evening, I accidentally discovered the truth. Michael was having an affair with a woman named Vanessa. Vanessa wasn't interested in building a life with Michael from nothing. She wanted the life he believed I was keeping from him. She wanted my house. She wanted my company. And most importantly, she wanted Michael to inherit everything. Immediately, when I confronted my son, I expected anger. I expected denial. Instead, he smiled. That smile was the first warning I ignored. "You're getting old, Dad," he said quietly. "Maybe it's time you stopped controlling everything." I told him the company would eventually be his, but I wouldn't hand over everything while he was destroying his marriage and betraying people who trusted him. Vanessa wasn't willing to wait. Within weeks, strange things began happening. Important documents disappeared from my office. Bank statements showed transactions I didn't recognize. My employees started receiving messages claiming I was becoming mentally unstable. Then one morning, 2 men arrived at my house. They said they were there because my family had become concerned about my mental health. I laughed. I told them I was perfectly fine. But before I could understand what was happening, they showed me documents containing signatures that looked like mine. Documents claiming I had agreed to temporary guardianship. I had signed none of them. I called Michael. He answered after several rings. "Dad, please don't make this harder." "What did you do? I'm protecting you. You are imprisoning me." There was silence. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Think of it as 2 years of rest." The door closed behind me, and for the next 2 years, my world became a small room with white walls, a narrow bed, and a window that couldn't open. At first I fought. I demanded lawyers. I demanded to see my bank accounts. I demanded to speak to my employees. Every request was rejected. My son had convinced everyone that I was unstable and incapable of making decisions. But Michael made one mistake. He underestimated his father. I didn't spend those 2 years waiting to die. I spent them remembering every conversation, every document, every account number, every person who had helped Michael, and every person who had betrayed me. I also began talking to an older lawyer named Richard, who occasionally visited the facility for another patient. I told him my story at first. He doubted me then. I gave him details no mentally unstable person could have remembered. Dates, contracts, property records, bank transfers, company ownership percentages. Richard promised to investigate. Months passed, then one afternoon he returned with a folder. "Daniel," he said, "your son made a serious mistake. Michael hadn't simply taken control of my company. He had transferred millions of dollars through shell companies, and Vanessa was receiving payments. But there was more. Michael had forged several signatures. Unfortunately for him, some of the original documents were stored digitally on an old company server. I had designed the company's backup system myself. Michael didn't know that the evidence existed. For 2 years, I quietly waited outside. Michael believed he had one. He moved Vanessa into my mansion. He drove my cars. He took control of my company. He told everyone his father was sick and needed professional care. And Vanessa began behaving like she owned the world. She even posted photographs from my house online. One picture showed her sitting behind my father's antique desk. Underneath it, she wrote, "Finally living the life I deserve." When Richard showed me that photograph, I didn't become angry, I smiled because I knew the truth. She wasn't sitting behind her desk. She was sitting on top of evidence. The day I was finally released came unexpectedly. Richard had successfully challenged the guardianship order. The court demanded that Michael appear and explain the financial transfers. I walked through the facility's front doors, carrying one small suitcase. I hadn't seen sunlight freely for 2 years. I stood there for several seconds, breathing deeply. Then I looked at Richard. "Where are we going?" He smiled to court. Michael was waiting inside. He looked confident. Vanessa sat beside him wearing an expensive dress. When he saw me, his face changed. That I didn't answer. The judge entered. The hearing began. Michael's lawyer argued that I had been mentally incapable of managing my affairs. Then Richard stood. He placed the first document on the table. A financial transfer, then another. Then another, each one connected Michael to money taken from my company. Michael's confidence disappeared, but that wasn't the worst of it. Richard presented digital records showing that Michael had accessed company accounts using passwords that only he knew. Then came the forged signatures, then messages between Michael and Vanessa, discussing my imprisonment. The courtroom became silent. Vanessa began crying. Michael looked at me. "Dad, please." I finally spoke. "You had 2 years to tell the truth." He lowered his head. I continued. "You didn't." The judge asked Michael whether he wanted to respond. He stood there speechless. Then Vanessa suddenly turned against him. She claimed Michael had promised her everything. She claimed he had told her I would never leave the facility. Michael shouted that she was lying. The judge ordered everyone to remain silent. And then Richard placed one final piece of evidence before the court. It was a recording, Michael's voice clear, calm, unmistakable. "Once Dad is gone, everything belongs to me. Vanessa gets the house, I'll handle the company." The courtroom froze. Michael looked at me as if he were seeing a stranger. But I wasn't finished. During those 2 years, I had discovered something else. My original company agreement contained a clause Michael had forgotten about. If any heir attempted to obtain control of the company through fraud, coercion, or criminal activity, their inheritance would be revoked. Michael had spent 2 years trying to steal an empire. Instead, he had destroyed his claim to it. The judge ordered an investigation. My assets were frozen temporarily, while the financial crimes investigation began. Michael lost control of the company. Vanessa lost access to my property. And the people who had helped them suddenly began disappearing from their side. Employees who had stayed silent came forward. Former associates brought documents. People who had ignored my calls suddenly wanted to apologize. I accepted some apologies. I rejected others because forgiveness doesn't mean restoring trust. Months later, the truth was finally public. Michael faced serious legal consequences for what he had done. Vanessa was forced to return money and property connected to the scheme. My company was restored to my control, but the greatest victory wasn't financial. It was personal. One afternoon, Michael asked to see me. I almost refused. Then I agreed. He entered the room, looking nothing like the confident son who had once locked me away. "Dad, I'm sorry." I studied his face. I know I was stupid. "No," I said. "You were selfish." He began crying. "I thought you would forgive me." I looked at him for a long moment. "A father can forgive his son," I said, "but forgiveness doesn't erase consequences." He nodded. I stood up. "You wanted my life so badly that you tried to destroy me." He wiped his eyes, and now I walked toward the door. "Now you have to build your own life." I left him there for 2 years. My son had believed that locking me away would make him powerful. He was wrong. Those 2 years taught me something I had forgotten. You don't need revenge when the truth is on your side. You need patience, you need evidence. And you need the courage to wait until the people who betrayed you expose themselves. Michael thought the day I walked free would be the end of my life. Instead, it became the beginning of his downfall. And the strangest part, I never had to destroy him. He destroyed himself the moment he decided that his father's love was something he could exploit.